A change is coming. Can you feel it?
There's a time to fight, time to write, undo all the things that the devil made right. Brown man, black man, yellow man, blue. Everything I thought was true was based on a lie I learned in school. We all be from Africa. Scientists can back it up. Race is a concept created to oppress, made by the white man so they could do this less. Take color land and respect, colonize culture, knee on my neck. They wanna take us out, we about to get lit. You know the time is 8:46.
You know that's right. You know the time.
You know the time is 8:46.
You know that's right.
Change in the car. Change in the car. We ain't gonna stop. And we ain't gonna stop.
It's been a long time coming. It's been too long. It's been a long time coming. It's been too
Yeah,
long.
from the ancients to attainments of today's kin tenacious. We rebels raised in a stolen nation, they shameless. Since the days when there was enslavement, the anguish, it don't make sense. So we can't quit with race that's counterattacking. The heinous, racist, ignoramus, can't detain us, courageous on a daily basis. The greatest, we say this, it's in our destiny, it awaits us. Rather be hated for being real than love for being fake. Made it this far in truth and good faith. Don't sell yourself short, we are not what they say. I know change is gonna come, let's make it work the way we can't wait on them do. Change is ours to take, each one teach one, from the cradle to the grave. With blood, sweat, and tears we have overpaid. Now it's time to collect, give me my change.
A change in the car. A change in the car. And we ain't gonna stop. And we ain't gonna stop.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time. It's been a long time coming, coming, coming. Sing it with me now. Say it with me now. Sing it with me. So let me hear you sing. Let me hear you. So let me hear you sing. Let me hear you. So let me hear you sing.
Just cry with me, don't die with me. Put your fist in the air and fight for me. The cops in the streets kill violently. The judges in the courts, they lie to me. Everybody in the streets just ride with me. The tears from my face fall silently. Close your eyes so we can see. Close your eyes and let's get free. Let's get free.
A change in the car. A change in the car.
It's been a long time coming. It's been too long. It's been a long time coming.
to support oppressed communities, in particular Latinxes. Gracias, Natalia, for being here tonight to talk about the work you're doing with childcare and paid leave. Please educate us more on childcare, paid leave, and the work you are doing with family values at work.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Alondra, for having me and the Poderosas, and everybody who's watching this. Thank you so much for being here. So here at the LATINX, we've been dabbling in a little bit on the work around paid leave. And this year specifically, with the pandemic, we've been trying to really bring those gaps that are happening in the community, specifically our Latinx community. So around paid leave, when we talk about paid family and medical leave or paid paid sick days, we're talking about the well-deserving stability for all the workers in this country, right? So this means provide workers with several weeks of leave to help with caring for a family member who is sick, or if you yourself need to take care of a personal health condition. It helps with care for a newborn, newly adopted child, or newly placed foster child, right? So pay leave saves jobs and it boosts your economy. And there's a lot of other intersections that also happen and fall under paid leave, but we can really be talking about that for hours. So right now I'm going to focus a little bit more on those impactful issues right now, just give you a little bit of facts on that, right? So unfortunately, the United States is the only industrialized country without any sort of permanent pay leave policy. It should be a given that you should not have to work and spread illness when you're sick and recovering, that you should never have to choose between, your family or your paycheck. And this gets deeper into the lives of our community. We all know life is not stable. Anything can happen at any given time, and our community suffered a lot during last year along with the pandemic. Nearly 2/3 of Americans, which would be 63%, say that they were living paycheck by paycheck since COVID-19 started, And imagine getting sick and missing just 3 days, and with the stress and running around to find ways to pay for rent and other bills because you lost those 3 days and just because you're not paid, So at the Atlantics and with the coalition that we're building, with Family Values at Work and the Pay Leave campaign, we're working to push a sustainable pay leave policy in place so that families and businesses are never scrambling for piecemeal solutions when illness strikes, a serious family caregiving need arises, or a new child is born or adopted. We want to build a better paid leave policy that has to be a part of our infrastructure, right? So that's a little bit about paid leave. I can talk a little bit about childcare as well. Childcare like clean water, safe food, good public schools, high quality, affordable childcare is a national priority that benefits everyone. We as a country want to ensure that all children, families, and communities can thrive, and we have the ability to do that by coming together and investing in a bright future for all of us, right? We always talk about like what should we invest in, what should we work on for the future of the country, and the reality is really the children that are living with us today, right? So 1/3 of workers have children, and their stability to work is significantly impacted by childcare, school, and summer camp closures, So that's another thing that we're also kind of focusing on right now. We're working to stabilize childcare and ensure employment rate can recover quickly, demonstrate a commitment to youth families, like transportation and electricity. A strong childcare infrastructure fuels strong families and communities.
Thank you, Natalia, for just going over what childcare is and paid leave. What is the work that we're doing with Will and Latinx and Family Values at Work more specifically? I know you've been on national calls regarding like organizing around childcare and paid leave, so kind of would want to know more about the work you're doing in regards to that.
Yeah, definitely. So Family Values at Work is a movement network of grassroots coalitions in more than 24 states working to win paid family and medical leave. Not just that, but also earn sick and safe days and affordable, high quality childcare at the state and national levels, right? So right now we're working on trying to push well, before when the American Rescue Plan was in the works, we were trying to push for that to the language to just be inclusive to any sort of benefits for the families that are needing that right now, specifically after that pandemic. So it was kind of push on Congress to pass some sort of paid leave policy. And after the FFCRA expired last year, which was the benefits that provided paid sick days for those who needed, to quarantine. Unfortunately, it was expired. We were trying to push and look for something else for the communities that are still missing and are still struggling right now. So the American Rescue Plan passed, and fortunately, there was a little bit of talk around paid leave, specifically more around like tax credits and businesses. So businesses who would provide paid leave will be able to get a tax credit on that. Unfortunately, it would have to be voluntary. So it wasn't something that a lot of businesses would have to enforce. And that's what we're trying to work on for the next recovery package. So that's something that we're pushing, educating folks and really letting them know what's happening around paid leave, why it's important for them to know and talk to their neighbors, talk to their families, and just have the conversation around paid leave, right? Just because I feel like, when you bring it up to somebody and they're like, I don't know what paid leave is, or like, what do you mean by childcare? It's just something that kind of has to have like a deeper conversation into it. So at PODER LATINX, we're trying to kind of have those conversations with folks, bring that language in Spanish, because again, like paid leave en español, ni de cada persona en diferente país lo dice diferente. And I was having a conversation with my mom and I was telling her like, do you know what paid leave, or like goce de pago? Ni idea. No, they don't know. So imagínate si this is our family. I'm sure there's multiple families that also have no idea what this is, but it could really, really benefit them, So we've been working on passing or pushing permanent pay leave in the legislative aspect of it statewide. We're also trying to work that here in Florida. We also have PODER LATINX in Georgia and Arizona. And then specifically around locally, what we're trying to do is just kind of close those gaps between those communities that really need it, and in the sense that it's not just like families who have kids, it's our LGBTQ communities that need time to go and get a procedure done, or our trans sisters who need to go to the doctor and can't afford to take a day off of work, or people who have been recovering from trauma or abuse, they need the mental stability and they can't afford to go back to work immediately. So it's just kind of having conversations like that. And then with the help of Family Values at Work and the Pay Leave campaign, where we're educating, the public and policymakers about the importance of universal access to ESD and FMLA, while emphasizing particular urgency of this issue for low-wage families and children and the ways it overlaps with racial and gender equalities.
Oh, that's a lot that we're doing at PODER LATINX and with Family Values at Work. Thank you for all this information regarding childcare and paid leave. I definitely learned some new information regarding these issues, but I think it's time that we can have more of a casual conversation regarding these issues within our Latinx community. So why is childcare and paid leave important specifically for the Latinx community? Like, in your opinion?
Yes. So, I mean,
it's a lot. It's a lot.
It is. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, I feel like paid family leave I think it should just be like a right that everybody has, And when we talk about, our Latinx community, how we were brought up, and this is not just paid leave, it's also in childcare, we have the tendency to, work 2-3 jobs, to pay, to work, pay for our family, the needs. More than half of Latino workers, they're unable to earn a single paid sick day, forcing them to choose between their health or the health of their families and their economic security when they get sick or they need to take care of a loved one, right? And in the United States, we have the highest labor force participation rate of any racial or ethnic group, right? And these segments are of the workforce are they're still increasing, they're increasing. Not to talk about like the essential workers that are on the line right now, right? A lot of them are undocumented workers, are immigrants, especially in the fields, people who are working specific jobs, that really you know threaten the base of what they're trying to build. So, and in just the disproportionate work and occupations that we kind of do, specifically around like food preparation and serving or construction, building like grounds, cleaning, maintenance, that's tends to be, the line of field that the Latinx community works in, and obviously it impacts them a lot more not having this benefit of paid sick days or paid family leave or childcare for that sense. I remember when I was younger, and my brother had his kids, and he would bring them to my mom's house, because it was just more affordable, right? And even here in Florida, like there's a lot of childcare deserts where families don't have anywhere to take their kids, and they're struggling with that problem where, I mean, I have to go back to work now, and like I haven't been working for a couple months because of the pandemic, so like what am I going to do? And it's that stress and it's that agony, and it's that's not just impacting them like physically but emotionally and mentally, and that takes a toll on people, and not just for the parents but for the kids as well. So
Yeah, no, definitely agree with you. And touching upon like formal childcare providers, a lot of them don't offer non-traditional hours. And I know some Latinos and our Latinx individuals work untraditional hours, like how you said they're prepping food, they can be farm workers, especially here in California. Um, so definitely that it's a struggle. I know my mom she used to like take care of other individuals' kids and used to bring the kids at like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And she would wake me up and be like, hey, like you need to help me take care of your cousins or, your my friend's child, help me. And I'm just like, why are they coming here at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m.? Why can't they come at like 9? She's like, well, they have to go to work. And I'm like, okay. And then they're coming back at like 8 p.m., 9 p.m. to pick up their children. I'm like, wow, like it's so important, especially to have affordable childcare, especially a paid leave. One thing that I just recently learned is regarding miscarriages. When I think of paid leave, I think of like, when they have a child, they get like the 5 months or, to bond with the child. But many times when women have miscarriages or something wrong goes with the labor, they don't get their paid leave. They automatically have to go back to work. And I just think about like the Latinx community, how that like is suffering. They don't even have time to mourn. So definitely childcare and paid leave greatly affects our Latinx community. But I just you kind of touched upon that earlier, that there's work, like happening in Florida and other states regarding childcare and paid leave. So what does that look like in Florida and other states that you've been, in the national calls, organizing around this? I know I have a few information regarding California, but I want to know from your perspective, because it's drastic. We don't have a one single thing in the United States that's child care and paid leave. Every state is individual and has different policies. So kind of want to hear your thoughts on this.
yeah, definitely. Florida, man, Florida is just Florida. They have their own set of rules. They like to do what they want. But it is what it is. I mean, Florida is working to have some sort of, permanent paid leave policy, but there is some infrastructure and kind of like hurdles that we have to go through. There is a preemption. There's preemption around paid leave, so it kind of makes it harder for representatives to pass something around it. So that's something that we're working on here specifically in Florida. We're building a coalition with Black Women's Roundtable and a couple other leaders in the whole state, a couple other organizations, and just folks who want to get more involved and see some changes. And then branch out and again have the conversation, see what might be a best fit for, and the fastest really, to pass some sort of paid leave policy in the state of Florida. I know that we also have work in Georgia and Arizona, and the past American Rescue Plan that just fortunately that we have now, that is providing some sort of funds for childcare, right? So there's so many gaps in our communities, and especially like I said in Florida, with no equitable distribution around childcare funds. And then now with the ARP, the childcare sector will receive a total of more than $50 billion in direct relief funding, and this is going to be like spread out throughout all the states, right? So I know like 39 billion in desperately needed childcare relief funding is going to be also like put out to those specific areas that are needing. So they're building like critical down payments on relief from the coronavirus aid relief and the Economic Security Act, which is the CARES Act, and the Consolidation Appropriations Act. So this finally delivers on the promise of like at least 15 billion in total to support children, families, and early educators who rely on and support the childcare and early learning industry. And these funds can stabilize childcare programs by covering a range of expenses such as like personal costs, rent, facility maintenance, improving personal protective equipment, now with the pandemic, and any other COVID-related supplies, goods, and services needed to, resume providing care. We saw that with the pandemic, 1 in 6 childcare providers have been closed, and like again, I was talking about childcare deserts earlier. Like that's something that's really impacting the community, specifically Black and Brown folks. So at least with these funds that we're receiving now, we're working on trying to, get together with the administrators and see how these funds are going to be distributed properly for each state, and this is like the expanded childcare assistance and childcare stabilization funds. Both of these need to be pretty much, they're going to be, distributed, which is a total of like $2 billion, right? This is just for Florida. $2 billion to be distributed around childcare, right? So the work that we're trying to do is have these conversations with the administrators to see how these funds can be, shared appropriately and equitably, and close those gaps. There's a lot of infrastructure needs. There's a lot of childcares that have been closed down, and I know, for example, a friend of mine who had a childcare facility for almost 42 years, and she had to close it down, after the pandemic. So like these funds might be able to help those people out.
Wow, well, those are going to be tough conversations to have regarding like how all this money is going to be split up, especially since depending if the administration or the administrators are willing to have these conversations. But one thing I kind of wanted to talk about regarding California is everyone thinks California is this very progressive state, very equity driven and equitable, but there's a lot of misconception with that. So in California, with regards to paid leave, only 60 to 70% is covered with that, like a person's pay. So they're only getting 60% of what they would be paid, or 70, depending on how much they get paid. And I think that's not equitable. It could be an individual who is low income, who's getting the bare minimum of, just minimum pay, which in San Francisco, I live in San Francisco, it would be $15. I don't know how equitable it will be to only be getting $60 or 60% of your paycheck. Let's say you're a single individual, or you have a partner, but both are low income. That 40% that you're missing could be someone's rent, could be someone's food, or, way to pay their utilities. But there's like major businesses like Apple and Google who, those individuals who are getting paid above the market rate could afford paid leave. But, individuals, especially in the LATINX community, we can't. That's why, people are like, nope, I cannot do paid leave. I need to go back to work immediately after. Even if they're sick, or in that, like, they're just gonna work through it. So I think those are some misconceptions that I've definitely been looking into. And they've been talking about it a lot, at like classes I've been taking. It's like, no, like there's an equity piece that's missing from this. So just kind of wanted to chat that in here, since everyone compares the states regarding paid leave and childcare. In California too, there is childcare deserts as well, especially with farm workers. You saw videos of children, because they're not in school, they have to be at home. The parents leaving them at like McDonald's to get equitable internet access, while the parent had to go and like work. There's like these things that needs still to be addressed in like a state like California. But I did have a third question that I really wanted to touch upon, since our work is around organizing. So why is national organizing around the work of childcare and paid leave important for us to do, apart from the legislative process that everyone has more of a common understanding rather than the organizing piece?
So, without childcare, or school, really, parents are struggling to work, attend college, participate in job trainings, and just take care of other household responsibilities. I feel like childcare is not just a place where children go when their families work. It's also a crucial learning environment for children, and the country's next generation of community members and workers. So this is something that, like I said, it also intersects with a lot of other issues, immigration, environmental justice, reproductive justice, LGBTQ. So especially, now with the pandemic, and even like pay leave, is also a key to a long-term health, stability, and prosperity. Pay leave, it saves jobs, it saves lives. And if we want to build back better after all this, this year that we've had, pay leave has to be a part of our infrastructure and included in the economic recovery plan, along with, other key jobs, small businesses, and infrastructure priorities, right? And I know, like, women specifically, and I, like, as us as poderosas, I know that last year with the pandemic, women accounted for all 140,000 jobs lost, and since the start of the pandemic, women have lost over 5.3 million jobs, and women of color have suffered the greatest loss. So paid leave can really keep women and caregivers in their jobs and attached to their own benefits. Public paid leave investments are crucial, even for small businesses as well. They have been hit hard this past pandemic. And these paid leave laws would help level the playing field between small businesses and large corporations, a gap made even wider during the pandemic. So, universal childcare policies, unfortunately, also are built on racial and gender equity, way back when. So, the support for healthy child development, it also allows parents and other caregivers to go to work knowing that their children, are safe, they're learning, improving the community, health and safety, providing good care jobs, improving the economy, and contributing to the economic growth and support the development of productive future citizens. The chronic underinvestment in childcare has significant negative consequences for families, for everybody, if you think about it. So and that's why we're trying to work for stability in gender, racial, and economic inequalities, and child development and school readiness in communities across the United States. This is something that, is really, really needed. And I like to also put in a lot of, or connected to mental health and how important that is right now, specifically with everything that's happening just this year, with all the shootings and everything. That's something that people don't also talk about. And paid leave and childcare also take a big, that's a huge chunk of families in that cycle that they go to, when they're struggling as when they're younger, and then they grow up and they have all this trauma that they don't like heal from, and then they grow up to teach that to their children. So it's just a never ending cycle, that these small little benefits that are affordable and are there, that the government can really help their constituents. It should be there to provide, so.
Yeah, no, thank you for explaining all that. Yeah, no, I think definitely like the national organizing around this is definitely needed, since we are one country with the need of having a universal childcare and paid leave system. But you did mention that there's many intersections between paid leave and like immigration and climate change. So can you kind of like expand on that? Because I know that there's an intersection between like paid leave and childcare, but I can't really wrap my head around like paid leave and immigration and environment. So like would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, so if you think about like BIPOC families are more likely to face greater barriers to care. They prohibit the cost. There's irregular work schedules that you mentioned before. There's also the language barrier, lack of convenient options, lack of support for like culture components. And trusted opinions and other needs that can like make childcare arrangements inaccessible for many families. When we're talking about like immigration or folks who are literally working, 12 hours a day, that's something that, a lot of folks may not really think about. You might think of the traditional, like, white suburban family who like father goes to work and mom stays home and takes care of the children. And they don't really kind of grasp onto the idea that, there's other families that have like a different sense of upbringing. And they're struggling through like different circumstances, right? So like, even with like climate change and like families who have had to migrate because of, natural disasters, so they come here and they're working to get their papers, and they're having 2-3 jobs because, the wife is having to take care of the 3 kids. That's something that also intersects with childcare as well. So it's like benefits like those that should be available to everybody. Everybody. That doesn't matter what your status is, what you look like. It's just benefits that in general will benefit the whole population. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, definitely. It totally went over my head regarding like status in this country and whether or not you're eligible to get child care or paid leave. Yeah, yeah, that's just so crazy to me that that's like a thing, to be eligible for childcare and paid leave. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just really mind-boggling. Like, what it should be a basic right for parents, for individuals. Oh gosh, yeah, no,
I know that it's crazy. Sorry, and it's funny because like, just if you look at like childcare, or for example like the history of childcare in the United States, it's really rooted on like exploitation of, Black women specifically, beginning with the like institution of, slavery, which forced Black women to nurse and care for children of white landowners, and to the detriment of their own children. Following the end of slavery, public policies restricted work options for Black women, for immigrant women, and other women of color to childcare and other domestic jobs. So if you think about it, like this is, I mean, it's racist, it's sexist. All the history that we have around this is it's undervaluing the care, the work, that they're doing. So it's like a lot, as we said, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up like the history of like how childcare started, especially in the route of like Black women during slavery. I think a lot of us try to, yeah, truly ignore the past of how things are created. But I think we definitely need to acknowledge it and learn from it and then better the system, that's not built upon racism and exploitation. But I do have another question, and that is, why do you think it's taking years to come up with comprehensive legislation and advocacy on childcare and paid leave?
I feel like I feel like I mean, since we're having this casual conversation, the way that things have been working in this country have been a lot on profiting over, those people that have worked their asses off, and it's always like profit over people, profit over people. Um, and it's unfortunate that those small folks of people who have the power don't really, they're privileged. They don't see that the majority of the population that it's impacting of not having paid leave policies or not having childcare infrastructure is really the basis of the country, and I think that there's a lack of education as well, and also a lack of accountability, one in education that, like we said, like this is a conversation that needs to happen more often, not just in English and Spanish, like in Creole. Everywhere we go in the United States, when you talk about it, you're like, oh, it should be something normal. Even when you're in the working place and you're talking to your coworker about how much they make, that should be a normal conversation to have. Like, oh, how much do you make? How much is it's just things that have like the capitalistic mindset has suppressed us to think that, like, oh no, it's not okay for us to ask for, like, a day off because, oh my gosh, our boss is going to say something, or like he might not give me the shifts that I may need, and it's the mentality that we need to kind of unlearn and then learn new ways to kind of grow. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I think just to add to that, I thought a lot about this question because I was like, how long have we been a country? How long have we been having these issues? And I think because, lawmakers traditionally don't have to worry about childcare paid leave, and it's usually, historically always been white men making these laws. We barely have had, women making laws regarding like union and paid leave and all that. And I think now we're seeing more BIPOC women and legislators who do care about these issues, except, they're still not the majority in these decision-making spaces. And then also too, no one has really empowered our community historically to advocate for these issues. I think, there's barely still an upbringing regarding like organizations like LATINX, like other organizations like Family Values at Work that are, still trying to get our community involved and empowered to speak up about these issues. So yeah, I've been thinking about this question a lot, and it's like, damn, like it's taking that long. And it's because, it's scary too, because, there's lawmakers that they have all this power, to determine what works for us, and it's like it's not working for us because you're not in our communities, you don't understand our issues.
Right, exactly. And I feel like that's something that I've seen personally, the new generation like kind of like push, or when I was talking about like accountability, it's like actually facing these representatives that are supposed to be fighting for our rights and telling them like, hey, what's up? Like, what are you doing? Like having just conversations with them, being like, yes, in social media or in the press, you're saying all of this and like supporting families and this and that. But in reality, you haven't co-sponsored this bill, or in reality, like, what are you actually doing to help these communities? So it's also like, the work around the organizations and what they put out in educating and, holding people accountable. But like you said, it's also trying to figure out a way to either through arts, which is something that I really like about Poder LATINX, is that we do, the Borinqueña and other sorts of things like that kind of reach out to different audiences where they're like, I don't really have time to talk about this, or like, I don't really care about it. Like, I have to, I have my 2 kids, I have my overnight job. Like, I don't have time for this, and like, kind of reach them in those spaces and like connect with them that way, because clearly the people who are representing us and our leaders are not doing that. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love that there's like an artistic side to our organization that I truly value, especially because my mother, she like is not the most like engaged individual, but if I like show her a video or like a graphic, she's like, oh, this is really pretty, what does it say? And I'm like, okay, this is where I'm gonna get you to be more engaged. Yeah, but is there anything else we should be discussing regarding childcare and paid leave? that you think is just super important for us to like really acknowledge and advocate on?
I would say, I mean, we talked a lot, we talked about a lot, during
Yeah.
this almost hour. Right now, what we're kind of pushing out is a survey, a community survey that we're gonna be sharing with like folks here in Central Florida through our social media as well. So for those folks that are watching, keep an eye out for the survey that's coming out this week. And it's going to be around pay leave, and it's pretty much just going to ask like a few questions, just the basic like, have you ever had to choose between losing a payday or going to work sick? Just things that like happen to all of us, because we're trying to gauge, what percentage of the community has actually been impacted on this, and like do that research and then figure out the best ways possible to help these communities. And like I was saying, like the amount of intersections that fall into paid leave, that's something that we're also trying to do with the coalition is, reach out to different sectors of health disparities or inequalities, folks who are living with HIV, folks who are living with kids with autism, folks who have like just had death in the family, or who have some family members who are incarcerated. All of these like issues fall under paid leave, and they need these benefits. So, and childcare as well. So yeah, I would just say, keep an eye out for the work that we're doing. Thanks again for everybody, for showing up and listening to this charla that we're having. And thank you, Anandra and Nancy and the leadership and the Poderosas for having me here today.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that wraps up our conversation for today. But yeah, thank you to our viewers for tuning in. Natalia again for the amazing work that you are doing and just like the organizing aspect of it. And also thank you to our leadership team as well for supporting this event. Yes, so we do have some events tomorrow for Poderosas and Poder LATIX. So I highly suggest going to our social medias, which is at Poder LATIX. We do have a Selena movie viewing tomorrow, all about Selena and like women empowerment. So please check that out. And also, please join our network. You can text Poderosas to 52886 to join and get more updates, such as our monthly newsletter, showcasing our events, scholarships, and fellowship opportunities, as well as events and resources in each state. Thank you, everyone. I hope everyone has a really great day. Bye.